Thank you. Representative Donna Oberlander.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Secretary. I represent Clarion, part of Armstrong, and hopefully soon part of Forest County. And I really appreciate your new mantra of problem solvers instead of impediments. Over the past 6 years, I have heard from not only local government, manufacturers, housing industry, conventional well drillers, that DEP is the biggest impediment to job creation in Pennsylvania. Can you tell us what that means in you want to be a problem solver, not an impediment, and how that will help in job creation for Pennsylvania?
Yeah, well, so one of the things we heard too, when the administration changed, and so you move through into a new administration, you hear folks, everybody wants to tell you what the problems are, what the challenges are of each agency, and certainly DEP, one of the things we heard at DEP was that there's no consistency. So from region to region, things are being done differently. Then you also hear from folks that say you're unwilling to budge on anything. You do it always this way. You're unwilling to listen to creative ideas. Sometimes it puts us in sort of a predicament, right? So we want to be creative. We want to have folks in our regional offices recognizing that every region of the state has its own environmental challenges that are really distinct to each region. There's overlap in some, but it's really quite interesting in many respects. We want to make sure our regional directors and the staff in those regions work with, whether it's permit applicants, whether it's folks on compliance, want to work with people to be creative to solve their challenges, their problems, to get to folks that need to be in compliance, make sure they're in compliance, but we want to work with them to get them there. We also, as a department, want to make sure that the solution in the Northwest office in that region is not a headache to the folks in the Southeast office. I mean, we need to be consistent enough with our general application of regulation, the way we enforce it, and the way we bring about compliance, and in our permitting process, so that there is this sense that we're not 6 or 7 DEPs, we are one DEP, but we're flexible enough from region to region to address regional issues in a creative way. One of the best, I think, examples of how we've improved and addressed some of the things you've heard from local municipalities and from businesses is the permit decision, easy for me to say, the permit decision guarantee program that these two gentlemen and my predecessor worked on and is now in full swing in the agency. We inherited an enormous backlog of permits when this administration came into office. That backlog of permits has been reduced by 95%, but the real progress was made in the way that we implement this permit decision guarantee program. We know that municipalities and businesses, the regulated community, needs predictability, right? They want things to be done timely, but they need predictability in order to be able to manage what they're doing. We've set up the structure in our agency so that we basically said, if you submit to us technically complete applications, permit applications, we can guarantee for you that we can issue these permits in a particular time period. So maybe it's 30 days or 60 days, depending on the complexity of the program, but there's a predictable timeline for the regulated community. Now, the importance to us is our professionals don't have to work any harder or any faster. If they get a technically complete application up front, the work gets done in a timely manner. And our statistics over the last year have shown, and in many instances, just by us doing our job, we're beating the deadlines we've imposed on ourselves. Part of that is also what we call our pre-application consultation meeting with the applicant. So we bring them in, we let them know what our expectations are. That has been the source. From a local government perspective, I can tell you the source of a lot of problems results is usually the application itself. The folks, when they're filling out the application, we're not always sure what to include or if we're including the right information, and that slows down the process. So by meeting before the application is submitted, we iron out all that information. We are now getting better applications, and we're able to meet these deadlines, and it doesn't sacrifice at all the level of review we give, and that's a positive. But at this point, the complaint that we heard for a long time about the backlog of permits, we're not here. I hope you're not hearing it any more than it's current. We're not hearing it now from industry, or from the municipality. So that's a good sign for us. We think the program works. It's just, we're getting good product up front. We've got terrific professionals in the department that get good product out the door. And together, I think we're accomplishing everyone's goals. I think it really is a win-win.
Thank you. I do represent a large number of conventional well drillers, and I appreciate your willingness to talk with them and with us about the changes to Chapter 78 that have really put them in a bad position. I want to go back to, you had mentioned 2,200 permits issued last year, I believe. 200 of those were unconventional and 2,000 were conventional. Am I correct in those numbers?
I think Jeff mentioned those numbers.
Okay.
You want to correct them, Jeff, to make sure?
Yes, thank you. The assumption for the unconventional horizontal number of permits is 2,200. That's what we're basing, that's the number of permits that we anticipate moving forward at a rate of $5,000 per permit.
Okay. Is that an increase or a decrease over 2 years ago when we actually added a significant number of inspectors to deal with the permitting issues for specifically well drilling?
That number is an assumption moving forward as a basis for budgeting. Hopefully, it will be more than that. But I'm trying to when we put together our budgets, we try to be conservative. The number of 2,200 permits is a lower number than we had in prior years. Now, the reality is the number of permit applications is down a little bit from 2 years ago. And but depending on the price of natural gas, that could turn right around.
My concern is that you want to hire 36 more inspectors, and quite honestly, I'm not nearly as excited as you are, Secretary or Representative Dean, about adding more inspectors when the majority of those are conventional well drillers who have been doing this for a very long time without problem.
I appreciate that, and not all 36 are going to be inspectors. I mean, we need to. This program, to be properly built, needs not only the boots on the ground, but we need a proper management structure in the field to supervise. You may have noted we issued, I don't recall if we did a press release. We recently created a position in the Oil and Gas Deputate, Executive Director of Field and of Oil and Gas Field Operations. We promoted Kelly Birch, our Regional Director from our Northwest Region office, into this job. Kelly's got almost 30 years of experience with the department, very good understanding of both the conventional business and the unconventional business, which I think is critical and helps address the needs of the folks in the conventional business, making sure that we are properly identifying the two very different business models, and that in terms of the way we regulate, we're also drawing those distinctions properly. And so we're going to grow in the right way, in a way that supports the entire deputate, this oil and gas deputate. And so it won't all be inspectors. There'll be other folks in the mix that we need. But I've made a commitment to the folks in the conventional industry, and I'll make this commitment to Pennsylvanians generally. We know oftentimes we're really good at figuring out what the intended consequences of our actions are going to be. We need to do a better job in the department of also understanding the unintended consequences and making sure that if we know what they are, and we try to eliminate those unintended consequences. And the example you point out is a good one, and I've made it clear to those folks that we will make sure whatever regulations come to fruition in the final stage, that they reflect the changes that need to be made.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.